I knew we weren't supposed to be together. But every glance from him burned me. The words had circled in my mind for weeks, long before I allowed myself to even whisper them in the privacy of my dorm room. His eyes carried something dangerous, something I knew I should turn away from. And yet, I couldn't. Professor Matthew Hale was not just any lecturer. He was brilliant, charismatic, the kind of teacher whose passion for literature made students lean forward in their seats, desperate not to miss a single word. He had that rare ability to make old texts feel alive, as if Shakespeare had written sonnets just for us. As if every novel we read contained secret codes meant to unlock our own lives. I was 21, a final-year student majoring in English literature. He was in his mid-30s, maybe 37, though I never dared to ask. His sharp suits and slightly untidy hair gave him the kind of presence that filled the lecture hall before he even spoke. When he smiled, the room shifted. When his voice dropped, soft and thoughtful, it felt like a secret. And maybe that's what I longed for, a secret that belonged only to me. It started innocently. After class, I'd linger a little longer to ask questions, ones I could have easily Googled but preferred to hear answered in his voice. He always listened with surprising patience, tilting his head slightly, as if my thoughts carried more weight than they did. One evening, when most students had already left, he stayed behind to help me with an essay draft. His hand brushed mine when he passed me the paper, a fleeting touch, so quick I almost wondered if it imagined it. But his eyes lingered a fraction too long. That was the first spark. Weeks went by, and with them came a quiet pattern, a shared glance during lectures, a casual comment that seemed meant only for me. A silence that stretched just a little too long when I entered his office. The line between admiration and desire blurred until I could no longer see it. Every rule, every ethical boundary, screamed at me. This was forbidden. He was my professor. I was his student. A relationship between us could ruin his career, my reputation, everything. But those warnings dissolved the moment he looked at me in that way, as if he saw something no one else did. One evening in early autumn, it happened. The library was nearly empty. I had been studying there for hours, lost in the quiet hum of the fluorescent lights and the turning of pages. When I finally gathered my books and walked out into the crisp air, I saw him standing near the entrance. His hands were in his coat pockets, his expression unreadable. "Working late?" he asked, his voice low. I nodded. "You too?" "Something like that," he said. A pause stretched between us, heavy and expectant. Then, as though fighting himself, he added, "Would you like some coffee?" Off campus. I should have said no. Every rational part of me knew the answer. But instead, I heard myself whisper, yes. The CAF was small, tucked away on a side street. It was the kind of place students rarely found, dimly lit, filled with the scent of roasted beans and quiet jazz. He chose a table in the corner, far from the windows. I sat opposite him, my hands wrapped around the warmth of the mug, though the heat did nothing to calm the racing of my pulse. We didn't talk much about class. Instead, we spoke about novels we loved, the frustration of deadlines, the feeling of not belonging in a world that demanded so much. He told me he once thought about giving up teaching to write full-time, but something kept pulling him back to the classroom. I told him I wasn't sure what I wanted after graduation, only that books felt like the only place I was truly myself. His eyes softened. "You remind me of myself, when I was your age." The words sent a shiver through me. Something about the way he said "remind me" carried more weight than it should. When we left the CAF, the air was colder, our breath visible in the night. He walked me halfway back to campus. At the edge of the main road, he stopped. "This can't happen," he said abruptly, his voice rough. I froze. "What do you mean?" He looked at me as though torn in two. "You know exactly what I mean. This, he gestured between us, his hand trembling slightly, is a line we can't cross. My heart sank, though I already knew he was right. I know. And yet, neither of us moved. The silence between us was unbearable. Then, before I could stop myself, I whispered, "But I don't want to walk away." His breath caught. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, so quietly I almost didn't hear it, he replied, "Neither do I." That night, I lay in bed wide awake, staring at the ceiling. My body still hummed with the echo of his presence, his voice, the way his eyes darkened when he admitted he didn't want to walk away. It felt like stepping into a storm I couldn't escape. Over the next weeks, everything changed. We didn't meet often, but when we did, the world shifted. A walk through a quiet park, a conversation in the shadow of a library corner, once even a stolen hour in his office after dusk, when the campus had emptied. Every time, we told ourselves it was the last. Every time, we promised to keep our distance. And every time, we broke that promise. The tension between us became unbearable. I could feel it in class, when he lectured on themes of love and betrayal, his gaze flickering to me for a heartbeat longer than anyone else. I could feel it in myself, the way I sat on edge, hyper-aware of every movement he made. I was living two lives, the dutiful student everyone saw, and the girl consumed by a forbidden secret that could destroy us both. And yet, I had never felt more alive. The first time he kissed me, it was both everything I had dreamed and everything I had feared. It happened late one evening in his office. I had stopped by under the pretense of needing feedback on an essay draft. The corridors were already empty, the air heavy with the hum of the heating system and the faint smell of paper and ink. He sat behind his desk, glasses perched low on his nose, flipping through my pages. I watched his hand as it moved across the paper, the way his fingers tapped when he was deep in thought. Every small detail about him had become an obsession. The tilt of his head, the crease in his brow, the way his lips curved when he was about to disagree with me. When he finally looked up, his gaze was intense, almost unreadable. "This is good work," he said softly. "You're pushing yourself." I smiled faintly, but my chest ached with something I couldn't name. The silence between us stretched, too heavy to ignore. Then it happened. His hand brushed mine, not by accident this time. His eyes searched mine, a silent question hanging in the air. I didn't hesitate. My heart was already pounding as I leaned forward. The kiss was brief, stolen, but it set fire to everything inside me. My body trembled, and when he pulled away, his breath was ragged. "This is wrong," he whispered. "So wrong." "I know," I said. But my lips still burned from his. We didn't kiss again that night. We barely spoke as I gathered my things and left, but something had shifted, something we could never undo. After that, the rules we had tried to build around ourselves crumbled. Our meetings became more dangerous. He would text me late at night from a number I was never supposed to save, asking if I was awake. Sometimes I would sneak out of my dorm, my heart racing as I walked through the sleeping campus to meet him in quiet corners of the city where no one would recognize us. Once, we sat together in the back of a nearly empty cinema. The film flickered across the screen, but I couldn't focus on it. His hand brushed against mine in the dark, and when our fingers intertwined, I thought my chest might burst from the weight of the secret we were holding. Another night, we met in a park under the cloak of shadows, the air cool and damp with autumn mist. He pulled me close, his coat draped around both of us, and for the first time, I felt the depth of his fear. "This will end badly," he murmured into my hair. "You don't understand what's at stake." I pulled back to look at him. "I know exactly what's at stake. And I don't care." His eyes were filled with conflict, but he didn't let me go. The danger became a presence in our lives, as constant as the attraction itself. Every time someone knocked on his office door while I was inside, my stomach lurched with terror. Every time another student joked about how hot Professor Hale was, I forced myself to laugh while my insides twisted. And when my friends asked where I disappeared to so often, I lied with ease, hating myself for it and craving the next lie all at once. I knew we couldn't keep it hidden forever. The university was a small world, full of curious eyes and whispered rumors. And yet, neither of us stopped. The more impossible it became, the harder we clung to it. The breaking point came one Friday evening in November. I had just finished a seminar, and the campus was buzzing with students heading out for drinks. I stayed behind, waiting until the halls were empty before slipping into his office. The lights were dim, the air heavy with the faint scent of coffee and old books. He was waiting for me. The moment the door closed, he pulled me into his arms, his lips pressing against mine with urgency that frightened me. When he finally pulled away, his forehead rested against mine. "I can't keep doing this," he whispered. "I am losing myself." "Then don't stop," I pleaded. "Don't let go." He stepped back, his hands trembling as he raked them through his hair. "You don't understand. If we're found out, my career, everything I've worked for, it's over. And your future could be ruined before it even begins." I swallowed hard, tears threatening to spill. "Do you regret it? Us?" His eyes burned into mine, raw and desperate. "Every second." "And not at all." The contradiction hung heavy in the air, as sharp as a blade. That night, instead of leaving immediately, I sat with him on the floor of his office, our backs against the bookshelf. We didn't speak much. We just existed together in the silence, the weight of what we were doing pressing down on us, and yet neither of us moved away. The following week, the tension on campus sharpened. Whispers spread about faculty relationships, though no one mentioned names. I overheard a group of students gossiping about how some professors crossed lines, their laughter cutting into me like glass. I wondered if anyone suspected, if our stolen glances were more obvious than we thought. One evening, while walking to meet him, I caught my reflection in a shop window. My cheeks were flushed, my eyes too bright, as if the secret had marked me in ways I couldn't hide. I began to wonder how much longer we could keep living like this, between desire and dread, between fire and fear. But even as the danger grew sharper, I knew I wouldn't stop. Neither of us would, because what we shared wasn't just attraction. It was something deeper, something that made the world outside feel dull in comparison. And yet, a small voice inside me whispered, "All storms break, eventually."